Hello, Barendipitous here with another video for the board game shelf. Here we have another Betrayal at House on the Hill game, except this is called Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Now, so basically this is a collaboration between like the people who made Betrayal at House on the Hill and, of course, Dungeons and Dragons. Although I think Wizards of the Coast is like in charge of both of them. I don't know. Anyway, this is basically Betrayal at House on the Hill, but D&D flavored. D&D flavored essentially. So usually like D&D D&D can be whatever you want, but it tends to be a little more like lighthearted and more like adventure and things like that. There's still a decent like this does still like lean more into horror and things like that, but it feels a little more like you're adventurers. You actually have abilities. I'll explain that in a bit. I think it's funny that I'm talking about Betrayal at Baldur's Gate now because here in early 2024, I still very much remember how, Baldur's Gate 3 was, one of the big video games of 2023. And, Baldur's Gate is a city in one of the most, popular and well-known, Dungeons and Dragons settings. And I've even run a campaign or two that involved the city of Baldur's Gate, so I know a bit about it. But yeah, that's where this is set in. I don't think this necessarily has any direct relationship with Baldur's Gate games or anything, but I mean it's all the same setting basically, right? Just different stories in the same setting. Kind of a bit of a mess again, but essentially, so a lot of similarities here. The gameplay is almost entirely the same. There are with a couple of key differences. First of all, again, you are playing as adventurers, and you actually have an ability this time. Now, what's kind of cool is that so there's 6 characters, and there are 12 classes in Dungeons and Dragons if you don't count the newer one, Artificer. And I think you pretty much have every single class represented in here. So we have a human monk, a human bard, we have a dwarf barbarian and a dwarf fighter. We have a half-orc paladin and a half-orc cleric, a human wizard and a human sorcerer, a drow dark elf warlock and a drow ranger, and finally a halfling rogue and a halfling druid. I'm pretty sure all 12 basic Dungeons and Dragons classes are represented in all of those characters, which is kind of cool. And again, they all have different abilities that are based on their class, like rogue, cunning action, which is very much a thing in D&D, eldritch blast, magic missile, very very clearly D&D. Here are the again, like sort of cheap bendy plastic miniatures. Once again, they're vague enough that it could be either of the two characters. You can tell they're cheap plastic because this wizard or sorcerer staff is all bent out of shape here. But pretty neat things here. So we have 6 characters here instead of 5. Pretty sure there were only 5 characters in the normal Betrayal. Yeah, and this one is is bent over as well. Like I try as I might to get them back up, it's just whatever. The dice are exactly the same as well, so no surprises there. Also, I failed to mention last time, I didn't really show all these tokens and stuff from in the Betrayal 2nd edition, but these tokens I didn't really. The reason I didn't really talk about these tokens at all is that they're specific to various haunts essentially. Like you don't usually use tokens unless a haunt tells you to, basically. So they're all there's enough tokens to basically satisfy every single to accommodate for every single haunt in the game, and then. So once again, we have item cards, omen cards, and event cards. These cards are a little bit nicer than the original from before. Turn reference cards. And then, also, I think the original game had, oh no, it doesn't, never mind. Oh yeah, I have Vecna, Deck of Many Things, Iron Flask of Tyranny, all these very, very Dungeons and Dragons things, right? It's it's not just inspired. It is these are actual things from Wizards of the Coast branded official Dungeons and Dragons. You'll also notice as well. So here's kind of the starting areas. You don't explore a house. You're exploring Baldur's Gate in general. So you start in a tavern. Of course, the 3 rooms in the tavern. These are 2 rooms in the basement of that same tavern. and each of these basically tells you each of these go in one of three areas of the town. So we've got the streets, we've got the catacombs, and we have building. Like, you know, so when you're building this now, you're going to have streets and buildings and things like that. You're kind of building. You're kind of forming a random version of, you know, several blocks of Baldur's Gate itself, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, also just like before, we have the so we have the rule book here. Let me put this here. Actually, I think this is a bit better. So we have the rule book here, and then of course we have Trader's Tome and Secrets of Survival. Right? It works pretty much the exact same way. Make a haunt roll every time you reveal an omen. After enough omen, like as more and more omens are revealed and equipped by the characters in the game, the haunt roll is basically the haunt reveal is basically inevitable. You match the room and the omen of when the haunt is triggered. Find out who the traitor is, and then you go off. Basically, I failed to mention in the last video also that sometimes the traitor is none yet, or none, or just generally unknown, or things like that, right? And also in this case, we have like certain characters are named as well. Also, if the character's not there, then there's an option, like, you know, for example, this one, Ralvio Escanor or Lowest Might, right? So there's a little more like kind of like character interaction going on with this game, which I think is cool. But yeah, that is basically it, honestly. It's really cool. Obviously, as a fan of both Betrayal at House on the Hill and Dungeons and Dragons, this was kind of a no-brainer, really. This is kind of a must-buy, I should say. Or just, you know, it was an obvious addition to the collection. Again, it's been fairly well used. A little bit of ripping there, but that's totally fine. But yeah, I've enjoyed this a lot, along with the original second edition as well. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, all the best.